It was a very long time ago, but when I hear about newcomers, I just was at a meeting this morning and there was a girl talking about the hell she's going through right now. And I was like, wow, I visited that a little bit in my own life. And today my life just isn't like that. I am happy, joyous, and free and walking along the broad highway under the sunlight of the Spirit in fellowship with many, many wonderful people.
I heard it through the grapevine.
Welcome. It's the AA Grapevine Half-Hour Variety Hour, featuring the collected voices of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm Don, an alcoholic in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Hey, I'm Sam, an alcoholic in Palm Springs, California.
Hiya, Sam.
Howdy, Don.
What's shaking with you?
Don, I was listening to a podcast recently, and it brought tears to my eyes. They were rolling down my face. I was listening to the General Service Office's new podcast this week, episode 3 of Our Primary Purpose. Listening to the share of Erin, who was visiting the General Service Office, and she shared about this moment of early sobriety, being in an airport and being afraid and needing to ask for help, needing some friends of Bill.
What a story.
Yeah, folks, if you're not listening to Our Primary Purpose, you're missing out on some good stuff. Jump over and take a listen because they are knocking it out of the park. This was so good.
Yeah, it really is. It's the kind of thing that, as far as I know, only happens in AA. Just reaching out and being surrounded by love and support as we are.
Yeah. I'm so glad that the General Service Office is doing that podcast because I get to have more cool stuff in my ears, and we like that.
Yeah, for sure. But I have a lot of times when I'm editing our podcasts, tears have come to my eyes from time to time, and I always like that. And a lot of people don't know, but one of the suggestions, like anytime that we've gone out to get interviews, and what I always say is, try and get somebody to cry. If you get somebody to bring some tears to their eye, then you got a really good interview.
Don kicks them in the shin to make them cry. That's connection.
It is what I like, is to have that connection and to have that feeling of intimacy that you can get here.
And that's what we do on the whole as members of Alcoholics Anonymous, whether we're having a conversation one-on-one with someone else in recovery or we're sharing in meetings. We bring a vulnerability and an openness that allows for real connection.
Whenever you see AA represented on television inside of a fictional thing, it never seems real. That's what's missing, is the real connection that you feel inside of the rooms.
When some folks first come into the rooms, they're a little afraid and they don't have that connection with AA yet. So they might want to bring someone with them. And when we were hollering for some questions not so long ago, Madeline sent us a few. And one of the questions that she sent us that she had when she first got sober was, can I bring someone as support to meetings?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes, if it's an open meeting.
That's right.
That's where we've got those two meeting types on the meeting listings, open and closed.
Which is the equivalent of public and private.
Right. A closed meeting is just for people who have a desire to stop drinking. An open meeting is for anyone who has an interest in Alcoholics Anonymous.
So if you want to bring someone to a meeting, you're perfectly welcome to bring them to an open meeting. A closed meeting, you would need to get permission.
That's part of that. Each group is autonomous. So
right.
the group can make its own decisions on how it wants to handle these things.
So check with the group.
Check with the group or look at the listing. It definitely, if it's open, it's totally fine.
And you'll find out groups listed that way. And the thing is about bringing support of someone to a meeting, when you go into your first meeting, it is daunting and it's scary. I was scared to walk into my first meeting. But I had a friend in AA and I called them And they took me to my first meeting. And after you go one time, then you meet people. It's really okay, but it doesn't feel like that from the outside going in the first time.
It's daunting.
So choose an open meeting and take someone to the meeting. Or if you know anyone in AA, everyone is willing to help.
Absolutely.
Okay, today's guest is Cindy R. in Columbus, Georgia. Cindy has a story in the October 2023 issue of the Grapevine.
And that's how we got to meet her.
Yeah, we reached out to her to be in an Italian episode that month, and it didn't work out, and we're doing it now. And afterwards, we're going to answer another question that was sent into the Ask It basket.
But first,
the news. The Plain Language Big Book is back in stock. It presents, in simpler language,
the ideas contained in the Big Book, Alcoholics Anonymous.
Specific AA-related words and phrases used in the original 1939 book.
Vocabulary in the original book that may be dated or not familiar to readers.
The core content of the original Big Book, without member stories, often called the abridged edition.
The Plain Language Big Book is AA General Service Conference approved literature and is back in stock and available for $11.
As always, AA encourages ordering our literature via your local distribution sources, groups, districts, intergroups, and central offices, as they play a vital role in local 12-step activities.
And now, that's the end of the news. Have you heard about our Grapevine book, Forming True Partnerships?
As the chapter on step 4 in the 12 Steps and 12 Tradition puts it, when we were drinking, many of us had a total inability to form true partnerships with another human being.
This collection of Grapevine stories shows the many ways members use the 12 steps, sponsorship, and the tools of the program to improve and repair their relationships.
It has colorful stories on families, friendship, marriage,
divorce, dating, romance,
coworkers, sponsorship, and get this, pets.
Forming True Partnerships covers a wide range of experiences from sober alcoholics, all focused on how we form true partnerships with others. Get it now at aagrapevine.org.
Hi, everybody. I am Cindy R. from Columbus, Georgia. I am an alcoholic, and my home group is the Moon Road Group. Meets on Mondays and Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. And Thursdays are really cool meditation meetings.
How does the meditation meeting work?
It's based on the 11th step. So what we do is read a little introduction about the 11th step, and then we do a 20-minute meditation. And then we talk about our experience, strength, and hope in our journey with meditation and our conscious contact with our higher power.
Cindy, what was going on that brought you to Alcoholics Anonymous? What was happening in your life, but more so in your mind, in your head?
It was definitely my head. I was 22, 23 years old. I was very, very depressed, but also drinking, but thought that depression was most of my problem. My life was really upside down at a very young age because chronologically I was 22, 23, but really mentally I felt like I was maybe 12, 13, 14. And of course, this is all in retrospect. I had just gotten married when I was 20. About a year and a half later, got divorced, moved up here to Columbus, Georgia from Naples, Florida. In page 33 of the big book, that's the only page I can quote. And down at the bottom, it says that some of us don't have to go down to these lengths. This is particularly so of women who can be gone within total recall within a few years. And that's really how I feel like my drinking was, because I drank for about 11 years. I started when I was 14 and I got sober when I was 25, 26 years old.
So you identified with that line.
Very much so, because I was a very functioning alcoholic. I knew I had a problem with alcohol when I was 15. I did not think I was an alcoholic.
Right.
Alcoholics lived under bridges. Alcoholics drank
Right.
every single day. That wasn't me. I had a job. At that time, I had a home, I had a car. I had never had a DUI, had never been in jail. None of those things have ever happened to me.
I relate to that too. I went to my first AA meeting when I was 18 or 19, and
Mm,
it was because I didn't drink right. I knew I didn't drink right,
yeah.
but I hadn't had consequences from it yet.
What makes you an alcoholic?
Oh, I could never predict what was going to happen when I took one sip of alcohol. I blacked out the very first time I ever drank. I didn't know that blackouts were a sign of alcoholism until I went into treatment. I had just moved to Columbus in November of 87. And by November of 88, I pretty much, I mean, I was getting ready to kill myself. And,
Mm.
another guest of yours say she had lost herself, her sense of self. And I was like, yeah, that's me. Because I remember looking in the mirror and not knowing who was staring back at me. And that's always been very important for me to be authentic. I knew I had some value and some core characteristics buried down inside me. Add alcohol. And my sister used to say, yeah, when I drink, I have the morals of an alley cat.
Yeah.
And I kind of identified with that because I was doing things that I would never, ever do sober.
Well,
I can't believe I behaved in some of those ways.
I felt like that the alcohol was the one thing holding me together. And you said like you reached the point where even you were feeling suicidal. When did you begin to realize that maybe alcohol is what the problem is?
I worked in the industry where I had to drive. It was a night after I had been out and I could not remember the evening. And I was about to go out in my vehicle and we had a safety meeting and it was around the holiday. So this was right before Thanksgiving. And I remember our boss saying, be careful out there. People are in the holiday spirit. They're out shopping. They're not paying attention to the road. And I remembered thinking, I don't remember driving home last night.
Mhm.
Mm.
But what I do remember is opening the door of that establishment and saying, I'm only going to have one beer and then I'm going home. And then I don't remember anything. And for whatever reason, and I believe this was my higher power now, at that moment, he put this thought in my mind. I could have killed a mother and her little baby. I don't know why it was so specific like that. And I was like, I've got to get some help. My boss had also said, if anybody has any issues, we have an employee assistance program and you can call them 24/7. Now, I had been thinking about calling them for a long time because of my depression, mind you.
Hmm.
But every time I would either start drinking again, and that remorse and the hopelessness that I would feel like when I was kind of hungover and, trying to get back on my feet would go away. And I would say, it's really not that bad.
Mm.
And so I wouldn't call. So for whatever reason, I went home that night and I said, I'm going to make the phone call, pick up that 1,000-pound phone.
Right.
Yep.
And so I called them. And of course, I said, I'm really depressed. Oh, that's my problem. So they spoke with me and kind of got to the issue. Well, do you ever drink? Well, yeah, but only when I'm happy. That's not my issue. But they kind of waded through the alcoholic haze, if you will, and said, well, we're going to have someone come talk to you. And they basically sent me off to treatment. And I went willingly. I mean, the way this counselor came to me and he said, well, we're going to send you to this place where you're going to learn all about what alcohol does to your body. And I was really interested in the health aspect of anything. So I was like, oh, cool. I'm going to learn something about, not having any idea that I was going to learn that I was an alcoholic.
I remember talking with the director of HR at my employer when I was getting sober, and she was asking me, well, these things about you. So now it really came to that point of, self-knowledge does not work. There's got to be a plan of action. And what I learned is that plan of action is not my plan. I need to follow someone else's plan.
Right.
So did you do that? Did you get a
Oh,
sponsor and
no,
work?
no.
Nope.
I tell people that, so my sobriety date is September 29th of 1991. And don't do it the way I did it, because thank my higher power, I just didn't pick up a drink, within those first like 20 years. And that's really what prompted me to write the article, was because I was really suffering in sobriety.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't taking the suggestions. I wasn't working the steps, for a good 20 years. I just wasn't drinking. And I got socially sober by immersing myself in AA and the people.
For 20 years?
Yes, I'm not proud to say that at all. But if it might help somebody else who's in there suffering, not working steps, because I was listening to you. I heard your laughter. I heard that, when you did these things, things got better. And I hated everybody. I hated all of you, because I sat there, well, that'll work for you, but that won't work for me.
Were you feeling outside of AA the whole time you were going for 20 years? Did you feel?
No, not at all. I didn't understand. In the beginning of the 12 and 12 in the forward, it says something about our steps that are spiritual in nature are a group of principles. I probably read that back then. I didn't understand how the steps could help my life get better. And today it's the principles of the steps. It's things like honesty, integrity, kindness, compassion, love, stepping out of myself, helping other people, not dwelling so much on myself, those kinds of things that weren't sinking in.
Well, how did you find that in yourself, that you weren't for 20 years getting the benefit of AA,
Right.
the full benefit?
How I did not go out and drink. And that's not to say that I wasn't working something, but mostly I picked up relationships. So I'm not proud to say that either, but I simply just replaced alcohol with relationships early on in my sobriety. Couldn't understand why, when they would fall apart because they were so unhealthy, meaning me, I was the unhealthy one, and calling my sponsor when crap would hit the fan. And then I'd get better, and then I'd go back, and in and out of there, like Bill, I think I was suffering still from depression. Today, I call it untreated alcoholism. Now, my experience tells me that once I started working these steps, in the last 10 years with a very good sponsor, I'm not depressed anymore. I'm not selfish and self-centered. So all these things that you guys learned probably earlier than I did. Wow, if I had just taken suggestions.
What was the breaking point for that? How did you determine that you needed to do something different in AA at 20 years?
And you had a sponsor during that time too.
No, I did not. When I first got sober, I had several sponsors, but then I found one, and she got drunk for probably 14 years after that. I didn't have a sponsor. Because I would look around the rooms and I would think, well, they only have so-and-so years. And it's such pride and ego.
Feeling like you needed to get somebody who had more years than you.
Yes, but I was miserable. I was very, very angry. I used to cuss at mailboxes, so I was a mail carrier. I would walk away from the mailbox and I would say, Cindy, it's not about the mailbox. And what I was really angry at is sitting in meetings and hearing how happy and joyous and free you guys were from doing these steps. And I was angry because I didn't want to do that. And so there was a girl, I had kind of grown up in AA with her, and she also had relapsed, but she got her life in order. And when I would hear her speak in meetings, I would sit there and say, oh, I hate her, because she was so happy and she had like really grasped the steps, and she was working the steps and things were going so well. And I knew that's what I needed to do. I was out on my route and I looked her up and I sent her a message and I said, hey, could you give me a call? Like 2 minutes later, she calls me and she was all happy and she goes, oh my gosh, she said, hey, what's up? And I said, to me, what were the three most important words in the English language? I need help. And I was bawling at that point. She was on it. She was like, all right.
I'm not crying right now, but I got chill bumps saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get chill bumps because the way it happened and the way, like, when I'm out in the middle of my route, bawling and so she was kind of hardcore. She said, we're going to meet once a week for an hour. I'm going to take you through the big book exactly the way I was taken through the big book. And of course, I just looked at her one day and I said, I still don't understand how this is going to help me get rid of all this anger I have in me. And she said, you'll be surprised what's underneath that anger. I'll never forget that. And I mean, it just opened up this whole new world. I got serious about it. And then, what happens? I wanted to share it with other people. I was sitting in meetings and I was wanting people to ask me to sponsor them because I finally had something to give them.
And then once you did that, you became one of those annoying, happy people.
I did. And then we kind of separated, and I heard a lady speak. She is now my sponsor. She is super spiritual. I mean, we went through the big book as part of the ISM instead of just alcohol and, the mind, body, spirit. I'm learning like how my mind is so sick still today.
Alcoholism has 3 parts. It affects the mind, the body, and the spirit.
We have a spiritual malady, and that's for sure.
There are plenty of folks who have just stopped drinking, but there's so much more that's available to us if we do this work. I'm really glad that I've done the work because to try to live bulldozing my way through life, trying to exert my will, it's not a fun experience for me, and I can't imagine it's any fun for the people around me.
Yeah. And I used to say I was kind of angry at myself or feeling sorry for myself because it took me so long. But today, and this will make me cry, I am truly grateful that it did take me this long, and truly grateful that I didn't pick up a drink in the process.
What does sobriety look like for you today? How do you stay sober today?
Oh gosh, well, I have 3 wonderful little sponsees that I love dearly, and I meet with them every week. And then I go to lots of meetings. The meditation meeting at my home group was something I had been wanting to start, but it's been going on for over a year. I do some volunteer work outside of AA, but my sponsor always tells me that Cindy, service comes from many different places. And, I see doing this volunteer work opens my heart up to just being a joyful, happy human being.
Recovery is to get us back into the mainstream of life.
Absolutely. And I definitely make a point, because I've heard you guys say this a lot. If I see somebody new, I will go up and say, hi, my name's Cindy. Is this your first time here? Or, first meeting? And just try to make them feel welcome, because I know that I felt very closed off when I first started coming.
That's great, Cindy. Well, hang around. We're going to move to the Ask It Basket. It's time for the Ask It Basket.
What's that?
That's the name Bill W. gave the basket that was passed around for questions. We want your questions for our guests.
General recovery questions, newcomer questions, AA history.
Got a question for the Ask It Basket? Go to aagrapevine.org and click on podcast.
And now, let's dip into the basket. We received this letter from Jim S. in Lockport, Illinois. He writes, hello, Ask It Basket. AA does not accept outside contributions, yet the basket is passed at open meetings in my area with non-alcoholics in attendance. I attend an open big book study, which occasionally has medical students that are there to fulfill a class requirement. At times, I have felt uncomfortable watching outsiders fumbling around for donation money. I always felt it would be proper to ask non-AAs to refrain from donating. Is there any official position on this matter? Love the podcast, Jim S. Jim, first of all, thank you so much for writing in with that. And we reached out to the General Service Office to get an official response. But listeners may not know anyone can ask a question directly to the General Service Office.
That's right.
Go to aa.org, click on Resources, then General Email Contacts, U.S. and Canada, where you'll see this.
For general questions, such as those related to group problems, AA service, or the traditions, select your regional contact from the list below.
You'll pick your region from the list and send in your question for a personal response. So, back to should our meeting accept contributions from non-AAs? Here's what we received from the General Service Office.
Greetings from the General Service Office, GSO, of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Michael. I'm an alcoholic who found sobriety in the fellowship of AA, and I have the privilege of serving as the coordinator of the Cooperation with the Professional Community assignment for the U.S. and Canada. It's a pleasure to have this opportunity to be in touch with you. As you know, each AA group is autonomous and has the freedom and the responsibility to interpret the traditions and set their policies and practices according to their informed group conscience. It will be up to the group members to address the matter you raise. Of course, according to the seventh tradition,
every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions.
This means that only AA members contribute financially to AA, and even AA members are limited in the amount they can contribute. This keeps AA free of outside influences that might divert us from our primary purpose, to help the alcoholic who still suffers. We have heard of open meetings that deal with this in various ways. One way is for the chairperson simply to announce,
since we are self-supporting through member contributions, visitors or observers are kindly asked to refrain from making any contributions. We would be happy to explain our traditions in further detail after the meeting.
We have also heard from groups where the treasurer or chairperson identifies anyone who is a visitor and simply says to them on the side that we cannot accept outside contributions and that no formal announcement needs to be made. Many groups, in reaching an informed group conscience, look to their general service representatives, GSRs, for specific information about group practices, or their intergroup representatives, or group treasurer. Many find that participation in local area and regional AA service events provide a good source of information about ways that groups deal with these issues. And another pamphlet that might be useful,
Self-Support, where money and spirituality mix. Go to aa.org and search for money.
You might reach out to other groups near you, your group's district or area delegate, for wider local shared experience.
That's a lot of information, but I love how we get the answer there of it's, first of all, up to each group, how they want to handle this. And here are some things that others have done. And I like that announcement about, we kindly ask you to refrain if you're not a member of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah, I go to a group. They'd simply say, if you're not a member of AA, please do not contribute.
Cindy, do you have any experience or thoughts around this?
Some of the meetings I've been to that are open, they have made that announcement. We ask that non-members don't contribute. So I like that personally.
What I like about this response from GSO, which is what they do all the time with any question, is there is no official answer. It's always every group is autonomous, and here's the experience that they can draw from of different things and different ways to approach it.
The General Service Office is not the quote-unquote AA police.
Not at all.
That's not who we are reporting people to for the General Service Office to fix this, because It's up to us. Alcoholics Anonymous is us.
That's right.
I will say I have to remind myself I'm not the tradition police. Sometimes they're doing it wrong. It's like, oh, okay. Usually things take care of themselves.
They too tend to do that.
Yeah, well, we also got this listener feedback.
The subject is impeccable coat of tan.
Uh-oh.
Hello. Some time ago, I was listening to the Grapevine podcast. During the Stump the Thumper game, you asked what Bill meant when he said he acquired the impeccable coat of tan one sees upon the well-to-do. Your answer was that an actual tan coat, bold text there, that wealthy people wore at that time. However, in the new translation of the big book Alcoholics Anonymous into plain and simple language, it says Bill's skin became tan from exposure to the sun. Is the answer in the podcast game correct, or the translation? Thank you, Haley M. from Fort Collins, Colorado. Be brutally honest, Don. Wait, no, not brutally, rigorously honest. We talked about that last week.
Okay. I think it's brutally honest, you telling me to be honest, Sam. Oh, dear. Sam asked AI this question, and this is what he got back. In the late 1920s and early 1930s, suntanned skin became a symbol of wealth and leisure in Western society. Engaging in outdoor activities like golf was the privilege of the well-to-do, and a tan indicated the luxury of a time spent in such pursuits. That sounds good, but I'm going to go with the plain language big book. I think I'm going to trust that translation. A lot went into it. My theory of a cashmere coat came from my sponsor. I'm going to throw him under the bus. No, in plain and simple language, Haley, I was wrong. And you win the much coveted warm glow of appreciation. Thanks for riding.
Thank you indeed, Haley. We now have Don saying I was wrong recorded forever and ever and ever.
Cindy, thanks for being on the podcast today.
I'm so glad we got to chat with you. It was wonderful getting to know you.
Oh, it was super fun. I enjoyed it.
Do you and your friends use the Grapevine app? It's a portal into the world of the Grapevine. The app is provided at no cost, but you get the most out of it by subscribing today.
App development is all about adding features and squashing bugs. If you haven't opened the app in a while or you uninstalled it, check it out again. Subscribing to the app supports everything we do.
We provide the podcast, the YouTube channel, our Instagram account, both the Grapevine magazine and Lavinia, and all the Grapevine books and literature. The app is free to download in your phone's app store and has great content and features provided at no cost to you.
If you want to help us reach out to other alcoholics, subscribe for $2.99 a month. You'll support all things Grapevine, including this podcast.
Hey, where do you think you're going?
I'm going home, officer. I just left the New Year's Eve party.
New Year's Eve? That was a month ago.
Oh, well, that's why I figured I'd better head home.
It's really not that funny. Thanks for joining us. The AA Grapevine Half-Hour Variety Hour is posted every Monday and is produced by AA Grapevine, Inc. We don't speak for AA as a whole. We share the experience, strength, and hope of members to help others recover from alcoholism. All things Grapevine are available at aagrapevine.org, including our app and how to get in touch with us. Find us on Instagram and YouTube. If you want to know more about AA, visit aa.org or search online for Alcoholics Anonymous and your city.